As soon as the bridal party came in sight of La Réserve, Monsieur Morrel descended and came forth to meet it, followed by the soldiers and sailors there assembled, to whom he had repeated the promise already given, that Dantès should be the successor to the late Captain Leclère. Edmond, at the approach of his patron, respectfully placed the arm of his affianced bride within that of Monsieur Morrel, who forthwith, conducting her up the flight of wooden steps leading to the chamber in which the feast was prepared, was gaily followed by guests, beneath whose heavy tread the slight structure creaked and groaned for the space of several minutes. "Father," said Mercédès, stopping when she had reached the center of the table, "sit, I pray you, on my right hand. On my left I will place him who has ever been as a brother to me," pointing with a soft and gentle smile to Fernand. But her words and looks seemed to inflict the direst torture on him, for his lips became ghastly pale, and even beneath the dark hue of his complexion, the blood might be seen retreating, as though some sudden pang drove it back to the heart. During this time, Dantès, at the opposite side of the table, had been occupied in similarly placing his honored guests. Monsieur Morrel was seated at his right, Danglars at his left, while, at a sign from Edmond, the rest of the company ranged themselves as they found it most agreeable. All right, we're just taking this one iota at a time, aren't we? Everyone is now at La Réserve, including the wedding party, who has just walked in and started seating arrangements. So, I did a little research. You want to hear some research? Too bad, it's my show. Here we go. I was curious about seating arrangements around this time. Etiquette clearly being a huge thing at this time. So, what does this mean exactly? Sitting on my right, sitting on my left. This kind of reflected power and hierarchy, personal relationships. So Mercédès' decision to seat Fernand beside her considers him a brother, and this is her way of showing that. Not only do we have the history together, as we've covered, despite our tension between each other, I still see you as a brother, and therefore, as my blood, you will be seated next to me. But, of course, this makes the blood run from Fernand's face. I wonder if this is like his guilt starting to seep in. Like, he is now tied to a front row seat with the very people that he is trying to take down. He is now, if should something happen to Dantès, he has a front row seat to watching Mercédès' emotional suffering through it. And that seems to be, affecting him a bit. And then Dantès, equally sitting Danglars next to him, this is really kind of an interesting dynamic and plays into that honorability thing, nobility thing that we talked about before, where, like, I don't know, it's easy for me to say in 2025 that, like, yeah, you know what? I'm not going to place my conspiratorial coworker nemesis in a high place of importance around my wedding party, let alone invite him to the wedding. But, I guess there's more political actions you have to consider here, because they will, continue to have to work. Not only that, but work well, because Dantès will be captain, and therefore Danglars will be the supercargo under Dantès. You got to make good on that. So he's doing a act of trust and goodwill to Danglars here by seating him in a high place of importance around the table. And I find that kind of parallel of Danglars on one side and Fernand on the other, Mercédès, Dantès, like, you've got an interesting, if you're blocking this on stage, you've got just like an interesting tableau going on. But how long can this bliss last? I don't know. This seems to be all happy-go-lucky stuff, and there is this storm cloud on the horizon of Fernand and whatever he may have done. Speaking of plays, I want to just end today's episode with a Dumas fact. I find it interesting that he started as a playwright, having his first produced in 1828 at the age of 27. So that's less than 20 years. It's 18 years before the Count of Monte Cristo comes into play. That was called Henry III and His Court, and it was followed by his second play, Christine, not the Stephen King book, obviously, but could you make Christine be a haunted carriage of the time? Probably not, because you got horses involved. Like, you need the autonomy of a car. Yeah, okay. So we're never going to do a period piece, Christine. It's all just a note to myself. Let's move on. But these two plays gave him significant income in which to begin writing full time. And, don't we all wish for that to some degree? I do find it interesting that he was a playwright to start with, because a lot of what we've seen so far feels very much like a play. People sitting in locations talking. I could see the last scene between Caderousse, Danglars, and Fernand kind of taking place on the corner of the stage, shady arbor. Coming from a theater background myself, I can kind of easily picture how this could be translated to the stage. But let's continue with Chapter 5 tomorrow as we continue The Count of Monte Cristo. I'll see you then. Okay, bye. The Countdown of Monte Cristo is part of the Gruntwork Podcast Network. This show is produced, edited, and hosted by Landon Solano. The original text of The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas. Theme song by Magic Solo. If you want to support the show and others like it, visit patreon.com/gruntworkpod. Thank you for listening. See you tomorrow.